Today's class is on organic reaction mechanism part 3. Contains aromatic and anti-aromatic compounds, kinetics of a chemical reaction, nucleophilicity, and living group ability.
Today's class is on organic reaction mechanism. This is part 2. Now I am discussing about first the aromatic compounds, which are called the aromatic compounds. According to Huckel's theory, in our previous concept, aroma means fragrance. So all the compounds, organic compounds which have fragrance are generally aromatic in nature. But the problem arises if or whenever we discovered the esters. These are also a sweet smelling substance, and that's why to differentiate between esters and aromatic, Huckel's gave a theory, a rule actually. Those compounds are aromatic which actually conforms with three different points. Number one, cyclic, they must be cyclic. Number two, they are planar, either planar or nearly planar. And number three, they have 4n plus 2 number of pi electrons. See these 3 points. Number one, this is the Huckel's rule. According to Huckel's rule, those compounds are aromatic in nature. Those compounds are aromatic in nature which are cyclic, so closed ring. Second, planar or nearly planar. Second point. Third point, 4n plus 2 number of pi electrons. Now, if or whenever these three conditions are fulfilled, only we can say that that compound or species are aromatic in nature. See this, if or whenever n equal to 0, then in case of 4n plus 2, this is the 4n plus 2 number of conjugated pi electrons. That means they are resonantly stabilized, they are stabilized through the resonance. So 4n plus 2, if or whenever if we take n equal to 0, then 4n plus 2 equal to 2. See this, cyclopropenium carbocation. Cyclopropenium carbocation. This is the 4n plus 2. This is the aromatic species. So when n equal to 1, this is 4 into 1 plus 2. That means 6. Benzene is the aromatic species. See this is the cyclic structure. All the carbon atom is sp2 hybridized. All the carbon atoms, 6 carbon atoms are sp2 hybridized. Hence, they are planar and they contain three. Actually, this ring contains 3 pi bonds. 3 pi bonds, and all these 3 pi bonds are conjugated pi electrons. So each and every pi bond contains 2 electrons. That's why total 3 into 2, 6 electrons. So it satisfies this condition. Again, this is pyridine. See this, the structure of pyridine, just like benzene, but one carbon atom is replaced by the substituted by the nitrogen atom, though it contains a lone pair, but lone pair is not in conjugation with the benzene ring. 3 double bonds present in the benzene ring. These 3 double bonds are in conjugated, and that's why this is also an aromatic compound. So see this, rather we can use this cyclopentadienyl anion. This is cyclic. This is also planar, and 2 plus 2 4, and this electron pair, that means total 6 electrons pair are in conjugation, because this is this enjoys the resonance stability inside the benzene ring, and that's why so it is also aromatic in nature. When n equal to 2, putting this, we get here 10. 4 into 2 plus 2, 10. This is naphthalene. This is also an aromatic species. So if or whenever these three conditions are satisfied, then in that case we can say that those species are aromatic in nature. Among these species, so these two which are ionic species but aromatic, these are called the quasi-aromatic, not the compound but the ions, and hence these are called the quasi-aromatic species. Now I am discussing about the anti-aromatic compounds, which are called anti-aromatic compounds. According to the Huckel's rule, those compounds, those species are called the anti-aromatic, which satisfy number 1 cyclic, they must be cyclic, number 2 planar, but number 3 only 4n number of pi electrons, conjugated electrons. See the difference between aromatic and anti-aromatic. Aromatic contains 4n plus 2 number of pi electrons, conjugated pi electrons, but in case of anti-aromatic species, these contain only 4n number of pi electrons. See the rules. According to Huckel's rule, number 1 cyclic, must be cyclic, number 2 planar, and number 3 4n number of conjugated pi electrons. See the example, cyclobuta-1,3-diene, cyclopropenyl anion, cyclopenta. Actually this is the carbocation system, cyclopentadienyl, 1,3-dinyl, cyclopenta 1,3-dienyl dienyl carbocation, actually dienyl carbocation. So all these species satisfy these 3 points, and that's why these are anti-aromatic. But see this cyclooctatetraene, this compound, though it satisfies these 3 part, but it is not planar. Why it is not planar? Because it is tub shaped. It converts to its this structure, so it is not the planar. This is actually a tub shaped part. Hence, number B, this condition is not satisfied, and hence it is not the anti-aromatic. Rather, it is called the non-aromatic species. So this species is called the non-aromatic. Otherwise, the residual 3 species are called the anti-aromatic species. I am discussing about the kinetics of the reactions. Kinetic of the organic reaction. Number 1, where this is actually energy profile diagram. Energy profile diagram means with respect to the energy, how far the reaction proceeds, and the reaction coordinate denotes the how far the reaction proceeds, that is the x-axis, and y-axis denotes the energy. Now suppose a reaction proceeds from R to P. Let R is the reactant here and P is the product. This is a one-step process. This denotes the one-step process. See this, it starts from R, shows a highest energy level, this part, this is the transition state, and this part is called the activation energy, EA. Now this is one-step process, and the product is P here. The process is exothermic in nature. See this from the diagram. Here del H, as the del H denotes the H of product minus H of reactant, and this is negative here since H of product is less than that of HR. This is negative. That's why del H, that means amount of energy is released here. So it is an exothermic process. This is the activation energy. This is the one-step process. So if or whenever the reaction takes part in one step, the reaction proceeds, that means the kinetical graph is like this. But if it proceeds through 2 steps, suppose this reaction here also R to P, this is a 2 steps process. The first step, see this, R, this is the energy level, P is the energy level, the amount of energy released is del H net. But the highest peak, this is the transition state 1. In case of 2 steps process, the first transition state, see this is the first transition state and this is the second transition state, this is the TS2. In between these two, there is a energy minimum part. In between a pair of transition state, there would be a species having less amount of energy, that means energy minimum part, and this is called the intermediate. This portion is called the intermediate, reaction intermediate. Now see this, in between these two transition states which has higher energy level with respect to the reactant, see this, the energy level from the reactant is this, let U1, and from the reactant is this is the E2, this is denoted by E2, and since U1 is greater than E2, therefore del H1, this is the del H1 from the intermediate, del H2, so del H1 is greater than del H2. So first step, as the activation energy required is greater than that of the second step, that's why the first step is the RDS. First step is the rate determining step. This is the slowest step. As it requires greater amount of energy, this is the slowest step. So it is a 2-step process where the first step is the slowest step. See this is also an exothermic process. Energy is released, del H is negative here, as the product energy of the product is less than that of the energy of the reactant, so amount of energy is released. Now in case of the third graph, this is also a 2-step process. See this, here also the R to P, this is also a 2-step process, but the first step, see this, the hump, the transition state, see this, the energy difference is U1 from the reactant, and this is the energy difference from the reactant, this is E2, and see this, that if we compare these two, E2 is greater than E1, that means the second step is the RDS. It requires greater amount of energy. So this is del H1, this is denoted by the H1, and this is denoted by the H2. Since H1 is less than H2, that means H2 requires greater amount of energy, so the hump is greater, that means it requires greater amount of activation energy, and that's why the second step here is the RDS. So like this is the first step is the RDS, here the second step is the RDS. Second step is the RDS. So these three are the reaction kinetics of some exothermic reactions which are generally take place in the organic. Now I am discussing about the nucleophilicity versus basicity. Nucleophilicity versus basicity. What is nucleophilicity? The reactivity of a nucleophile is called the nucleophilicity. Reactivity of a nucleophile. In my previous video, we have discussed which are called the nucleophile. Generally, negative charge species or lone pair containing species are called the nucleophile. Like ammonia, it's a nucleophile, as well as OH minus, it is a negative charge species, acts as a nucleophile. But which are called the base. That means it also actually base and nucleophile are go parallel with each other because they have correlation with each other, because both of them are related with the first having lone pair or negative charge, and B easy to donate these lone pair or negative charge. So both of them are related with these 2 points. Both of them have lone pair or negative charge over their atom or species, etc., and easy to donate those these lone pair or negative charge. How easy they can donate, how readily they can donate this lone pair or negative charge to the other substance. Now, what is the difference between these two, nucleophilicity and basicity? This is the actual relation. These two are the relation between these two. So both have a lone pair or negative charge on them, and both have a tendency to donate their lone pair or negative charge to the other substance. Now the differences. Number one, first differences. In case of basicity, the electron pair donates to the hydrogen atom, but in case of nucleophilicity, it donates, the electron pair donates to the carbon atom. This is the basic difference. Number two, basicity is related with the equilibrium. That means thermodynamical point of view, thermodynamics. But in case of nucleophilicity, it is related with the kinetics of the reaction. How fast the reaction proceeds depends on this. And number three, basicity, as it is related with the hydrogen atom, which is the least sterically hindered, hence basicity has merely affected, is merely affected by steric hindrance, whereas the nucleophilicity, as it is related with the donation to the carbon atom, which is larger, and hence may suffer the steric hindrance due to the presence of 1 degree, 2 degree, 3 degree carbon atom, hence is markedly affected by the steric hindrance. These are the difference, steric hindrance. These are the difference between the nucleophilicity and basicity. Now, again, nucleophilicity and basicity, on the basis of basicity, if we consider basicity, there are two types. Number one, hard base, and number two, soft base. Hard base, and number two is the soft base. Which are called hard base? Those species which satisfies these three conditions. Number one, very small in size. Number two, high electronegativity. Number three, low polarizability. When it can occur? Only in case of this species where the charge density means charge by radius ratio becomes very high. So in such species where the charge density becomes very high, these species are called hard base. Which are called hard base? Some examples are fluoride, example, OH minus, these are called the hard base because charge density becomes very high, high electronegativity, low polarizability, etc. and so on. But soft base, just opposite with respect to these, they are large in size, number 2, very low electronegativity and high polarizability. That means they have low charge density. Charge by radial ratio becomes very low. The example are some H2S where sulfur larger in size as compared to the oxygen, low electronegativity as compared to oxygen, high polarizability because these species are polarizable readily, that means I minus, all these species are highly polarizable. Now these are the types of basicity and also the nucleophilicity also. Now the relation for a given degree of basicity, what are the relation between these two? Softness promotes the nucleophilicity. That means the more the soft, the base, the stronger will be the nucleophile. More the soft the base is, stronger will be the stronger or powerful will be the nucleophile. So like this we know that down the group size increases. So down the group size increases like fluorine, chlorine, bromine and last iodine, size increases and that's why nucleophilicity increases. So the order of the nucleophilicity is I minus, greater than Br minus, greater than Cl minus, greater than F minus. Now this is the order of the nucleophilicity for a given degree of basicity. This is the softness promotes the nucleophilicity. Now attacking species is same. In case of B, if the attacking species is same, then the basicity and nucleophilicity go parallel to each other. In case of attacking species, same attacking species, the basicity and nucleophilicity go parallel with each other. Like this, suppose see this, CH3 minus, NH2 minus, OH minus and F minus in a period from group 14 to group 17. These are the elements of group 14 to 17. Central atom carbon group 14, nitrogen group 15, oxygen group 16 and fluorine group 17. Now with the increase of the electronegativity on the central atom, charge density increases, hardness increases and hence basic property increases as the basicity and nucleophilicity go parallel to each other. That's why we can say that the basicity increases in a period. So next point is in a period from left to right, nucleophilicity increases. Now see this, if we add H plus to each of them, then it becomes CH4, it becomes ammonia, it becomes water, it becomes HF, and this is very strong acid, and we know that as it is strong acid, so it becomes weak base. So weak base means weak nucleophile. As it is very weak acid, actually it has no acidic property, CH4, that's why it is a very strong base. So the basic property is like this and hence nucleophilic property is also like this. But if we take the example of like PHO minus and ETO minus, PHO minus and ETO minus, if we add H plus in both of them, then it becomes phenoxide to phenol, it becomes ethyl alcohol. As the negative charge gets stabilized, see this, in both the cases the atom remains same, the nucleophilic atom remains same, basicity is parallel to nucleophilicity if the attacking species is same. See this, in both the cases the atom remains same, oxygen, but here the oxygen enjoys the resonance stability with the benzene ring, and hence it is weak base. As it is weak base, so it is weak nucleophile. That's why the stronger nucleophile is this, ATO minus. So these are the differences between the nucleophilicity and basicity and relation between the nucleophilicity and basicity, as well as if we take the compound and the anion. So if we compare these in between these two, a compound H2S and HS minus, we know that HS minus has more tendency to accept this H plus readily, and that's why it is a very strong base, and hence its nucleophilicity is also, because same atom, attacking species is same atom, that's why its nucleophilicity is more than that of the neutral species. So these are the differences and relation between the nucleophilicity and basicity. Now, before summarizing the 4 points already we have discussed, expressing, actually explaining the solvent effect. Why the solvent effect? See that if we take the low charge density ion like I minus, this has very low charge density, as the charge by radius ratio, charge density equal to charge by radius, and the radius is very large, so its charge density becomes very low, and hence its polarizability is very high. That's why I minus attracts the water molecule towards it, but it not strongly attract. These water molecules are not strongly attracted by I minus, not strongly polarized, not strongly polarized. Hence these ions, that means this I minus ion is not solvated properly in this polar medium, because we know that water is a very water has a very high dielectric constant value. It is a polar medium, but I minus not attracted strongly, not polarized strongly, and hence this I minus is not solvated properly. As it is not solvated, so this unsolvated species acts as a good nucleophile, and hence it acts as a good nucleophile. Rather, if we use here F minus, then due to its high charge density, it strongly polarizes the water molecule, as well as it forms hydrogen bond with the water molecule and gets solvated, and hence it will be a bad nucleophile. So why we can say this number 3 point, number C, nucleophilicity increases on going from top to bottom in the periodic table. Why we have discussed, why we have explained this part, already discussed here. This is the solvent effect, because these particular species cannot be solvated properly, and hence these unsolvated species act as a good nucleophile. The first point is this: a species with a negative charge is a stronger nucleophile than a similar species with a negative charge. Without having a negative charge, like this water and OH minus. If we consider between these two, then a species with a negative charge, that means OH minus, is a good nucleophile, a stronger nucleophile, better nucleophile as compared to without a negative charge, that means water. Already we have discussed like this: H2S is a weaker nucleophile as compared to SH minus. So these are the conditions first. Now the second, nucleophilicity decreases on going from left to right in the periodic table. Already we have discussed that CH3 minus is a very strong nucleophile than that of NH2 minus, which is also a stronger nucleophile as compared to the OH minus. Also it is a stronger nucleophile than that of F minus, and already we have discussed the reason of it, because from left to right, size decreases, charge density increases, strongly polarizes water, gets solvated, and acts as a bad nucleophile. Moreover, if we add H plus in all these species, then it becomes methane, it becomes ammonia, this becomes water, this becomes HF, and stronger acid means weaker base, and basicity and nucleophilicity go parallel to each other, and that's why the basicity of CH3 minus is very high, as well as F minus is very low. So last point is bulky group present in nucleophiles and nucleophilic center. Bulky group present on nucleophilic center decreases the nucleophilicity. What does it mean? See this HO minus. Here the O minus is attached to its hydrogen atom. This is greater than that of CH3O minus. CH3O minus. Here the bulky group. When it attacks to the carbon atom, steric hindrance occurs, and that's why it acts as a weaker nucleophile as compared to HO minus. Again, if we consider this CH3O minus with CH3 whole to CH minus, CH3 whole to CHO minus. Now, this species, due to the presence of more bulkier group, So it will be a weaker nucleophile as compared to CH3O minus. And again, if we consider this with a tertiary butyl group, CH3 CO minus, tertiary butoxide, this is isopropoxide, this is tertiary butoxide, this is methoxide. So HO minus, due to the presence of very small, actually smallest hydrogen atom, no steric hindrance occurs and good nucleophile because it attacks the carbon atom, which is comparatively larger in size as compared to the hydrogen. So it acts as a good nucleophile. Methoxide weaker, isopropoxide comparatively weaker, tertiary butoxide, among these four this is the weakest. See this is the effect of the bulky group present in the nucleophilic center. Now I am discussing about the leaving group, which is called the leaving group. Here see this R dash Y. Y here acts as a leaving group if or whenever the bond dissociates as to form R plus and Y minus. That means that group can act as a leaving group which during the reaction it dissociates and formation of a carbocation occurs, and if or whenever it dissociates it accepts the electron pair towards it to form the Y minus ion. That group is called the leaving group. So it must be more electronegative than that of carbon as it snatches the electron density towards it to form an anion during the bond dissociation, and the heterolytic bond cleavage occurs here. Now such type of dissociation actually alters the rate of SN1, SN2 and E1, E2. So this, on the basis of this, because this bond breaking occurs only in case of RDS, rate determining step. So bond breaking occurs at the rate determining step, and that's why it alters the rate of SN1, SN2, E1 and E2. How it depends, how the Y group, the relative ability of the Y group as a leaving group depends on some factors. Number one is the strength of the RY bond. Stronger the bond, less readily it dissociates and acts as a bad leaving group. How it becomes stronger? We know that if the size of the atom is very small, so if or whenever it forms a bond with carbon, then overlapping region becomes very large and hence bond strength becomes very high. So during the dissociation it requires greater amount of energy. That's why it acts as a bad leaving group. But instead of this, if we use here iodine, due to the presence of large size, not proper overlapping takes place, overlapping region becomes very low and hence bond length becomes very large, bond strength becomes very low, easily get dissociates to form I minus, and hence it is a stronger good leaving group than compared to fluorine. Now polarizability of the bond, more readily it gets polarized towards it. So I minus diffused, that means low charge density, large in size, low electronegativity, such type of species are low polarizable, high polarizable, and that's why I minus, that means I is a good leaving group as compared to fluorine. And the third point is stability of Y minus, though it also governs, actually the bond breaking depends on this factor, but see this Ri is greater than Rbr, greater than Rcl, greater than Rf. So this sequence, on the basis of this sequence, we can say that first and second point is more prominent than that of the third, because we know that fluoride minus is more stable than that of I minus, but here 1 and 2 point actually becomes more prominent as compared to the third point. So that's why Ri, as we have already said that I, due to the large size, high polarizability, low bond strength, easily get dissociate, and hence I is a good leaving group here also. So this is the actually order of ability to act as a leaving group. See this order, leaving group. See this order here. First N2 plus, good leaving group, diazonium type cation, N2 plus. Second is alkoxide, ROR, ether type plus cation. Third OSO2CF3, this is a good leaving group also. OSO2Me, good leaving group. And see this sequence, OSO2, that means SO3PH, I, then Br, then OCOCF3, Cl, F, then O, CO, CH3. So good leaving group is that group which is bulkier as compared to the other. So bond length is somewhat longer as compared to the smaller sized atom. Overlapping region is very low, bond strength is very low, and easily get dissociate and can act as a good leaving group. See this sequence. This is the order of the good leaving group.